You're not lost because you stopped trying. You're lost because you've been trying for so long that you've stopped noticing what you're actually moving toward. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that has no name. It isn't burnout. It isn't depression. It's the feeling of moving and not arriving, of doing and not becoming, of trying and still feeling like you're standing in the same place you were a year ago. You know this feeling, and somewhere underneath all the effort, there's a question you haven't let yourself ask. What if the direction is wrong? The experience doesn't arrive dramatically. It's quiet, a kind of flatness. Things are fine, technically, and yet something is missing. You look at your life and feel almost nothing. You imagine the future and feel no pull toward it. And the strangest part is, you can't explain why. Because from the outside, you're doing everything right. You're improving, you're building, you're trying. And yet, the feeling remains, like you're living a life that was built for someone slightly different from who you actually are. So you try harder, you optimize more, you build more structure. You tell yourself, if everything is aligned correctly, the feeling will disappear. But it doesn't. Not because you're failing, but because you've misunderstood the problem. You don't lack direction. You have too much of it. Goals, plans, expectations. You know exactly what you're supposed to want, but somewhere along the way, you stopped knowing what you actually want. Slightly more analytical but still calm, grounded clarity, and that's where the disconnect begins. The mind wasn't built for this much input, not this much noise, not this many definitions of success. You absorb them constantly, other people's lives, other people's ambitions, other people's certainty, and slowly, their signals begin to replace your own. Your real voice doesn't disappear, it just gets quieter. It doesn't argue, it doesn't force itself, it waits. And while it waits, you follow what's louder. This is how you can be moving forward and still feel lost, because you're following a map that was never yours. And there's something deeper happening. Your attention is fragmented, pulled in too many directions, and over time, attention becomes identity. What you focus on becomes what feels real, and when your attention is scattered, your sense of self becomes scattered too. Not broken, just spread too thin to form anything solid. You're not undisciplined, you're disoriented. There's a difference. And disorientation doesn't respond to more effort. It responds to stillness. Deeper, slower, more philosophical, slight weight in voice. But stillness is the one thing this world avoids at all costs. Because in stillness, you hear what you actually feel. And that requires honesty. So you keep moving, and the feeling stays with you. But here's the truth. You're not lost in the way you think. You didn't fail. You didn't choose wrong. You didn't miss your life. You just started listening to signals that were never yours. And over time, your own voice began to sound unfamiliar. But it's still there. It never left. That feeling of being lost isn't failure. It's awareness. It's the part of you that still knows. Something isn't aligned and refuses to ignore it. The answer isn't more effort. It's less noise. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from finally being quiet enough to hear yourself again. You were never as lost as you thought. You were just listening to the wrong signals for long enough that your own voice started to feel unfamiliar.